Good morning, everyone. Let's start our Saturday Vivekachudamani class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo, Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhubhuva Swaha, Tatsavitravare Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah प्रचोदयात् अस्तो मा सद्गम्य तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्य मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गम्य ओम सहना भवतु सहना भुनक्तु सवीर्यं कर्वावहि तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहि ओम शांति 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 ओम. For the last few weeks, we have been learning that the student, the disciple who followed the instructions of the Guru, did the practice and how he reached to that samadhi state. And how he's feeling that ecstasy, that's what he was verbalizing to us. Sometimes it seems like he's repeating himself, almost like a blabbering, but words cannot express what he was experiencing. That's the reason it sounds like he's just keep going on and on and on about the same thing. Don't we do that also in the worldly pleasures also? Something we like, we just go on and on and on about it. This is something a lot higher, which cannot be explained in words. So let's see what advice, final advice, the Guru is giving it to the disciple. And to us also, we are supposed to reach there too. This kind of experience is not just for one or two, it's for all of us. It's available. But do we really want to do the sadhana or not? It's up to us. Okay. So let's start the class with verse number 521. And on some of the books, it could be 520. But it starts with iti natam. इति नतम अवलोक्य है शिष्यवर्यम समधिगत आत्म सुखम प्रबुद्ध तत्वम प्रमुदित हृदय स्वदेशी केंद्र पुनः इदम अह वचापरम महात्मा. इति means thus. Natam, prostrating. Avalokye, having seen. Shishyawaryam, best among the students, like a worthy student, Shishyavar. Samadhi Gat, who has very well got. What did he get? Atam Sukham, bliss of the self. Prabudh Tattvam, one who has awakened to that reality, the essence, Tattva. Pramudit, very glad, happy. Hridaya, at heart. So means that Deshikendraha, great teacher. Punha, again. Idam, this. Aha, spoke. Vacha, words. Param, supreme. Mahatma, the great one. The supreme great one. Seeing that the worthy student has gained the bliss of the Atma, is enlightened, so student is enlightened and is prostrating. Natam, the noble teacher, being glad at heart, again spoke these supreme words. So this is what Guru wants. Guru wants all the disciples, all the students to reach this kind of ecstasy. He did not doubt it. Okay? He saw that, what kind of enlightenment he felt, what kind of a bliss he felt. So the noble teacher, Mahatma, being glad at heart again, spoke these supreme words. So to the best of the disciples who has realized this self, is standing right before him, prostrating, doing the namaskar. And that's what we saw in the last couple of verses. How humble the student was, how much gratitude he was showing to his teacher. So the teacher addressed the following words, which we can learn. So he's giving more advice to the disciple, that how a man of realization, because you have felt this bliss, you have reached at a higher level, how should you really work in this world now? First, you were doing whatever you needed to do as an ordinary man, but now you are not an ordinary person. You have realized yourself what your relationship should be to the rest of the world now. Let's look at next verse, 522. Brahm pratyay santatihi jagat ataha ब्रह्म एव तत् सर्वतः पश्ये अध्यात्मदृशः प्रशांत मनसः सर्वासु अवस्थासु अपि रूपात् अन्यत् अवेक्षितं किमभि त चक्षुं ताम दृश्यते तद्वद् ब्रह्मविदा सता अपरम बुद्धे विहार आस्पदम्. Brahma, we know, supreme, absolute. Pratyay, perception. Santati, santati means unbroken stream. That's called santati. Jagat, universe. Ataha, therefore, Brahma. Ev means alone. Tat sarvata, in every respect. Pashye, see. Adhyatma drisha, with the subjective visions. Adhyatma drisha. Prashant manasa, with the serene mind. Sarvasu avasthasu, in all conditions. Okay, sarva avastha, in all conditions. Api means even. Rupat, from forms. Anyat, apart. Avekshitam, having ability to see. Kim bhita, what else? Chakshumtam, those who have eyes. Drishyate, see. Tadvad, in the same way. Brahmavida, the knowers of Brahma. Sata, there is. Kim aparam, what else apart from it? Buddhe, of the intellect. Vihar aspadam, matter to engage in. An unbroken series of perceptions of Brahma is this universe. Okay, so it's like a Brahma everywhere, homogeneous. An unbroken series of perception of Brahma is this universe. So in every respect, it is nothing but Brahma. And this Guru is saying, in all conditions, see this with the vision of illumination. In all conditions. No matter where you see, no matter what is happening, see Brahma there. And a serene mind. So that means keep a serene mind. Do not get disturbed when you see something disturbing. Is it ever possible that he who has eyes can see anything other than forms all around? So he says, with his physical eyes, you see the forms. With his divine eyes, you are seeing the Brahma. So now see Brahma everywhere. So too, what is there to engage the intellect of a realized man except Brahma? So use your intellect like that too. So in other words, this entire universe is Brahma and only Brahma, seen through this higher intellect. Because this student experienced Brahma, even the perception of this pluralistic world, what did he see? Brahma everywhere. That's what he was mentioning. So with your inner eyes and even with your outer eyes, just make sure you remember that it's only Brahma. And that's why he is giving this example of a pair of eyes, which we all have. With this pair of eyes, can we see anything else but the forms and the colors? So sadhaks who have the quiet minds, higher intellect, will they see anything else other than Brahma? But still, the man of realization has to go through the different circumstances in life. Sometimes there could be a happy moment and sometimes there's a tragic moment. We cannot avoid them. But he is advising a realized student that in and through all these circumstances, do not lose sight of the idea that there's nothing but Brahma. Okay? Conditions change, situations change, objects change, but this substratum, which is a Brahma, God, it never changes, always with us. So this is the advice he's giving it to us. Next verse, 523. Ka tam paranand ras अनुभूतिम उत सृजे शुनेशु रमेत विद्वान चंद्रे महा आह्लादिनी दीप्यमाने चित्रेन्दुम आलोक्यतम क इच्छेत. Ka means which, tam means that. Paranand, supreme bliss, is like a Paranand. Paranand. See, we learned about the sandhis the other day. So this is a sandhi, Paranand. Ras anubhutitam, reveling in essence. So ras is the essence. A ras ki anubhuti. So reveling in essence. Utasrije, giving up. Shunyeshu. Shunya means void. So voidless. Shunyeshu. Ramet, will revel, will enjoy. Vidwan, wise person. Chandre, in the moon. Maha, Aladini, greatly enchanting. Deepyamane is shining. Chitra, Chitra Indum, painted moon. Chitra means a painted. Indum means a moon. So painted moon. Alokyatam, desirous to see. Ka means who? Ichet, would desire. Which wise person would relinquish reveling in supreme bliss for the enjoyment of paltry things? The things which don't have that kind of essence. When the greatly enchanting moon is shining, who would wish to gaze upon a painted moon? Beautiful analogy he is giving over here. Once you have seen Brahma everywhere, why do we want to see or waste our time on looking at something which is so temporary? So he's kind of putting a question in our mind that which intelligent man, wise person, Vidwan, leaving the supreme state of the bliss of Brahma or Paramatma, would wish to revel in the empty things of the world. Empty things. Empty means no joy in them. We think that there's a joy in this place or that thing or that person. What is the source of joy? Source of joy is the Paramatma and the Atma and Brahma. So in that sense, he's saying, Shunyeshu. There's nothing in there. It's a pithless place. Who will desire to see a painted picture of the moon when the real moon is shining above? Because you would not like to miss the beauty of the moon rising over the horizon to gaze upon. Why waste time on that canvas painted moon? So in other words, when the source of all happiness is within, it's like in the form of Atma, that we think that it's right here. It is here, it's everywhere, but at least try to focus here. If you cannot see it outside, stop courting the impermanent joy of the objects. That's what he's trying to tell us. So a realized person who the student is at this point has experienced the supreme state of infinite bliss. So he's advising him that do not throw even a backward glance upon the sense objects now, because you have seen the real. Let's look at next verse, 524. Asat padarth anubhaven kinchit na hi asti tripti na cha dukhani tat advaya anand ras anubhutya triptah sukham tishtha sada atmanishthaya. Asat, unreal. And we have learned what is unreal. Unreal is something which changes with the time. That's unreal. Yesterday it was something else, today something else, tomorrow it will be something else. That is asat, unreal. Something which does not change with the time, past, present, and future, that's the only real. That is sat. So asat, unreal, padarth, objects, anubhaven, by their experience, anubhav, kinchit, little bit, na means not, he means indeed, asti, there is, triptihi, contentment, na means not, cha means and, dukha hani, cessation of misery, end of the misery, end of the sorrow. That means that, advaya anand, non-dual bliss. Ras, essence, anubhutya, by its realizations. Triptaha, contented. Sukham, happy. Tishtha, may you abide. Sada, always. Atmanishthaya, abiding or established in the self. Atmanishta. In the perception of objects, unreal. Okay. So in the perception of objects, unreal. There is neither the slightest contentment nor the cessation of misery. Therefore, content in the realization of the essence of the non-dual bliss. Remain happy, ever identified with the self. So I told you when we started today, this is advice given to us or to that student who has reached to that pinnacle by the Guru. This senses the demand. Senses demand, eyes demand to see something outside. Ears demand to hear the worldly music. But over here, this Rishi is saying that sense demands give us sorrow. Sorrow means there's never enough contentment from the outer objects. Either we get bored with it or it ends. It's not permanent. So in order to end this sorrow, we keep on running towards the sense objects more and more. We think that maybe this object did not give me satisfaction. I move to another object. This person did not give me happy. Let me find another person. So we just keep on going from one object to the other, or one place to the other, or one person to the other. So in the process, what are we doing? We are courting only the objects. And the desire to indulge in these objects multiplies. And this makes us run towards them again and again. So the world of objects, or even the emotions or the thoughts, anything, that is all unreal. So that is the experience of the objects. They can never satisfy us completely. Endless satisfaction can be gained only by the experience of the self. And this is Atmanishta. So Atmanishta alone can give us absolute contentment. Because that's what we are hungry for. We want to know ourselves. At this moment, we have Anatmanishta. Anatma means non-self. And at the beginning of this beautiful scripture, we learned, we went through these definitions again and again. The difference between Sat and Asat, the difference between Atma and Anatma, self and the non-self. We have been running after the Anatma for countless lives. It could never satisfy us. So that's why over here he's advising us, get established in the Atmanishta and come to live in this bliss then. Next verse, 525. Swamev sarvatha pashyan manyamana swam advayam swa anandam anubhunjanah kalamnaya mahamate. Swamev, yourself alone. So it says Swayam Ev, yourself alone. Ev means alone. Sarvatha, always. Pashyan, beholding. Manyamana, contemplating. Swam, the self. Advayam, as a non-dual. Swa Anandam, bliss of the self. Anubhujana, enjoying. See, bhunj means enjoying. Anu means even a small bit of it. Kalam, time. Naya, maybe pass. Mahamate, oh intelligent one. He says, oh noble one, oh intelligent one, beholding the self, always contemplating upon the self, which is a non-dual, and enjoying the bliss of the self, you should spend your time. Okay? How do we spend our time? You got to look at it. So the teacher is addressing, when he says a noble one or Mahamate, great one, he is addressing this student who has been walking on this path and the student who has reached that place. He's calling him a noble one, Mahamate. And this should give us encouragement to stay on this path too. If this student has realized the self, realized the truth, we can realize the truth too. It's available to all of us. But then he says, Sarvatra Sarvbhavena Sarvprakarena. That means all the times, in all circumstances, at all places. So he is advising us, or advising this disciple, how to spend his life. Because he still has a body. He is still have that few more years or the decades, doesn't matter how long to live on this earth. So he says, in all beings, at all times, in all conditions, feel this bliss of this non-dual Atma, which is nothing but Brahma. That is your real nature. Whenever you get a little minute, try to enjoy your non-dual nature. Whenever you think that, no, I got to enjoy something, enjoy the real thing, the real you, which is closest than the closer. Whenever your sense organs feel the objects around, they want to perceive something, tell those objects, or tell your senses at least. We don't have to throw away the objects, but we can control our senses. Withdraw your mind from the objects. Instead of going towards the objects, he says, because if you keep on going towards the objects, this lust will plague you. Anger will come, greed will come, delusion, passion, jealousy, all those enemies, they will come towards you. So, in order to conquer these enemies, dwell in this non-dual Atma. Find the bliss from there. He's calling it non-dual self. Non-dual self means there are no different Atmas. It's the same. It is part of Brahma. He says, spend your time like that. Because after realization, it could be another 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, doesn't even matter then. Or even if it's just a 1 hour, just dwell in that. Because when you become extroverted, all those, there's a chance for us to get deluded again. When you're introverted, there is a silence in our mind. And that's where we constantly feel the inner world and the outer world is the same, and it's all Brahma in that silence. Because in actuality, there's nothing but Brahma everywhere. So Shankaracharya is saying, may you enjoy the bliss of your own self. 526. अखंड बोध आत्मनि निर्विकल्पे विकल्पनम व्योमनि पूर्व प्रकल्पनम तत् अद्वे आनंद में आत्मनः सदा शांतिम पराम एते भजस्व मौनम. अखंड बोध आत्मनि. Akhand is unbroken. See, khand means broken. Akhand is unbroken. Bodh is knowledge. So in the unbroken knowledge. Nirvikalpe, in the one which is free. Free from what? Free from changes. Nirvikalpe, no vikalp in there. Vikalpanam, dualistic conceptions. Vyomana, in the sky. Vyom is the sky. So Vyomana means in the sky. Pur prakalpanam, imaginations of the city. See, Pur means a city. That's why this body is also called a Pura. And that's why another name for Atma is Purusha. That each of this is Pura, Purush. Tat means in the same way, Advaya Anandmaya, non-dual bliss. Atmanaha, yourself. Sada means always. Shantim, peace. Param, supreme. Etye, having got. Bhajasva, may you live. Manam, in silence. In the unbroken knowledge, Akhand Bodh, the absolute, the Atma, dualistic conceptions are like castles in the sky, are like cities in the sky. Therefore, attaining supreme peace, live in silence, identifying yourself with the non-dual bliss, absolute. So what he's saying that this world, we have projected it upon the Brahma like building the castles in the air. We have projected it. And this Atma is also indivisible, non-dual. Definitely we see this body, which is made out of Panchkosha. Panchkosha is what? This body of ours. Physical body and even the subtler body. Or even this I, mine, me and mine, this ego. All this is like imagining a city in the sky. Vyomane Purkar Parakuna. We have imagined all this. Actually, it has no existence in the real sense. Right now, this body is here. What will happen tomorrow? We don't know. So that's why it's not Sattva. We see the change of the mind and the intellect and the I all the time. So these are all imaginations in this city. Let your mind rush. Don't let your mind rush outside. Let it be silent. So when we don't let your mind go outside, when it's not restless, when it's calm, that is a real mon. Mon doesn't mean that not speaking anything. This real mon is when the mind is calm. Let not your mind worry over the past. Let not your mind worry over the future also. We got to watch our mind. What does it do? Either it likes to stay in the past. Sometimes at the good time, sometimes not so good time also. It likes to just relive the past. Or it just likes to imagine the future. And future could be good or bad too. Sometimes we worry the future, sometimes we over plan the future too. So he says those are mere figments of the imagination, and those are like a building castles in the air. Let's look at next one. What other advice he's giving it to us? 527. Tushneem avastha param upshanti buddhe asat kalp vikalp hetu brahm atmanah brahm vida mahatmanah yatra adve anand sukham nirantaram. Tushneem. Tushneem means silent. Avastha, state of. So it's like I become silent. Tushneem avastha. Param upshanti. Param means supreme. Upshanti means peace. So supremely peaceful. Param upshanti. Buddhe of the mind, intellect. Asat, unreal. Kalapa vikalpaha, fancies or imaginations. Heto, the cause. Brahma Atmana, by one who is ever identified with Brahma. Brahma Vida, the knowers of Brahma. Mahatmana, the great one. Yatra, where. Adve Anand, non-dual bliss. Sukham, joy. Nirantaram, constantly. The cause of all imaginations. All the fancies. The mind becomes perfectly serene to the sage who has known Brahma. Okay, sometimes we wonder, we are on this path. How will we know we are progressing? No matter what the circumstance, is our mind peaceful or not? Not only in the good times. You often see in the good times also, mind can get disturbed. But over here, he is saying in all conditions, the cause of all fancies, the mind becomes perfectly serene to the sage who has known Brahma. Indeed, this is the state of quietness in which ever identified with Brahma, he constantly enjoys the non-dual bliss absolute. So Brahmatmana is one whose Atma has become one with the Brahma. It is always one with the Brahma, but with our own imaginations, with our own sankalpa and vikalpa, we think we are different than Brahma. But over here, Brahmatmana, he says, with all this, you know that you were never apart from that. So a person who has found his identity with the self everywhere, that's called Brahmatmana. And this kind of a person is called Brahmavid, knower of the Brahma, has realized that he is divine. And not only this person is divine, he understands everybody else is divine too. No separation. It's like he feels the unity even in this diversity. Bodies are different, thoughts are different, places can be changed, but Atma is same. And he has realized that he is divine and knows that divinity in him is the divinity everywhere. That is a Brahmavid. And a person who has realized this truth, only that person can keep the mind quiet. Otherwise, this pluralistic world, which we call sansara, keeps our mind churning. Cause for non-existent imagination, agitations, is this a separation from this reality? Asat kalap vikalap hetu. This mind is the one which keeps on playing this dirty tricks on this quietness of ours, this peacefulness, which is our real nature. Because mind is the one which is responsible for all these imaginations. Sankalap vikalap, atmanamana. So this quietness of the mind, remember, yesterday we were discussing, this is not because of the deep sleep. Because this mind is quiet in deep sleep also. But this Rishi is talking about, or the student has gone towards that quietness. It's not because of the deep sleep or even stupor, but because of the experience of the objectless, unbroken bliss. So there's a difference between the deep sleep or a dreamless sleep and this samadhi. Advaya Anand Sukham Nirantaram is always there. Na asti निर्वासनात् मौनात् परम सुखकृत उत्तमम विज्ञात आत्म स्वरूपस्य स्व आनंद रसपायना. This is verse number 528. Na asti, there is nothing. Asti means there is, no means no, there is nothing. Nirvasanat, freedom from vasanas. Maunat, silence, quietness, monat. Param, supreme. Sukhakrit, the source of happiness. Uttamam, highest, the greatest. Uttamam. Vigyat Atma Svarupasya, to one who has directly known his nature. Swa Ananda Rasa Payana, to one who savors the bliss of the self. Rasa Payana. There is nothing more exhilarating than the supreme silence, which comes from being free of vasanas. We think that we can find happiness or that kind of ecstasy by having things. Because vasanas are what? Vasanas are the impressions, and those vasanas create the desires, and the desires create the actions, and through the actions we think we can have happiness. So Adi Shankaracharya is saying there's nothing more exhilarating than the supreme silence which comes from being free of vasanas. To him who has known his own nature and who drinks the bliss of the self. Because the supreme nature is what? Nothing but bliss. And when we can drink that, that means when we can really feel it, there is no more happiness than that. Sometimes we think we know that, oh, there's a joy. Joy which arises from sense enjoyments. But they are temporary. Temporary happiness from the fulfillment of a desire is accompanied by intense agitation for the repetition of the sense fulfillment in order to relive that moment. We enjoyed eating something or going somewhere or meeting somebody, and we keep on thinking about it. When can I have that again? That is a sense enjoyment. Compared to that, he's talking about the bliss of the self, that eternal happiness, which has nothing but the happiness in it. There's no sorrow in it because you are never separated from it. That is your real nature. So that's why he says the bliss of the self is an unbroken experience which arises from the desirelessness. So this nirvasana means no desire. A person who doesn't have any desire, don't we think that that is the happiest person? No desire. So bliss of the self is an unbroken experience arising from the desirelessness. And the state of desirelessness itself is supreme bliss. Because desires are the one which create the ripples in our mind. I want to have that. Cannot live without that. We don't even mind using those words actually. That's where we are. I better get it, or else. We got to look at it. What is the state of our mind and where this great yogi is taking us? Nirvasana, desirelessness. He says, Nirvasana monat param sukham na asti. He who has known the self and has drunk the essence of its bliss can never be satisfied with the happiness which arise from the sense indulgences. Anything in this world is very pale compared to this bliss. Sure, there's a momentary happiness from the sense pleasures, but not like this, which is available to us all the time, anywhere. Shouldn't we make some effort, just like this student did, so that we can feel this too? But we have to do some sadhana for it. Let's stop the class here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much.